This video is going to be mostly focusing on the ending, but before I do, there's a few things from the middle of the series that I'd like to try and quickly cover. If it's more basic things about the show, like the 1 Year War and the backstory of the universe that you need to know, then I have another video on that. If you want to skip right to the ending discussion of episode 9 and beyond, though, this video should be chaptered, so that you can do that just fine. So, in episodes 6 and 7, we see some things from Zeta Gundam, the sequel to the original 1979 Mobile Suit Gundam series. A new Psycommu mobile suit has been sent from a Federation lab on Earth, and that mobile suit is GQuux's version of the Psycho Gundam. A huge, intimidating mobile suit covered in beams that could transform into a floating mobile armour. Interestingly, the design of the GQuuX version more resembles the Mark II of the Psycho Gundam. I imagine this is because the original Psycho Gundam was the result of a request from Bandai to feature the design of a guest artist who had made a lot of robot designs before that resulted in highly successful toys, which is why they wanted him. The creator of Gundam and director of these early series wasn't really happy with it though, as the art style didn't match the rest of Zeta Gundam's designs. But the Mark II of the Psycho Gundam wasn't requested by Bandai in the same way, and so was free to be made by Zeta Gundam's principal mechanical designer, and so blends into the series more naturally, especially with its extremely Zeta-like face. So I think that's maybe why the Psycho Gundam in GQuuX looks more like the Mark II. If not, then oh well, it's an interesting little factoid for you. It does also at least explain why Bandai suddenly finally released a model kit of the Mark II a couple of months ago. Both of the Psycho Gundams were made by the main villainous faction of the Zeta Gundam series, the Titans, an independent anti-terrorist unit of the military given special powers to act above the law by the Earth Federation government, so that they could more effectively hunt down and prevent more attacks from remnants of Zeon forces. The Titans were commanded at the time by a man called Bask, whom we see is still in a similar position in GQuuX, although just with much less power, like the Federation as a whole. His blonde subordinate in the show, Gates Capa, also served in a similar role in Zeta Gundam, fighting alongside a less stable Cyber-Newtype, which is just an artificial new type created through horrible experimentation, which is why the resulting pilots can be strange. We also see Shalia's Kikeroga here, and the design of it is just like his Browbro from the original series, only upgraded in GQuuX with a transformation into a mobile suit. Lastly, if you wondered what the deal was with the mayor that episode 5 opens by talking about, he was part of the mobile suit unit, the Black Tri-Stars, in the 1 Year War. Black Duo Stars doesn't really have the same ring to it, so you can see why the remaining 2 pilots were kind of pissed at him leaving them behind. Now, onto the ending, beginning with episode 9. Despite being introduced late and not really surviving for very long, Lalah Sune is one of the most important characters from the original series. Both Char and Amuro Ray, the original pilot of the Gundam and protagonist of the 1979 series, fell in love with her and were devastated by her death. Her impact on both of the show's main characters only becomes more apparent and more important as time goes on, and it continues through their entire storylines, all the way to the end in Char's counterattack. She first met Char on Earth, where he saved her from illicit activities and brought her back into space with him, and they fell in love. A while later, she then also met Amuro Ray. Sheltering from the rain on a colony in Side 6, they both fall in love, despite only chatting for a short while, because they also connected on a level beyond that, as incredibly powerful new types. And I'd also argue as teenagers. They only met once more before facing each other in battle, where Lalah would fight alongside Char against Amuro in the Gundam. Her mobile armour, the Elmeth, was the first Psychomu-equipped mobile armour designed for actual combat, and in it Lalah proved herself an incredibly strong new type. It came with large wireless bits that were pretty much nearly their own mini mobile suits. They had their own reactors, thrusters, beam cannons, and even their own mono-eyes to feed information back to the pilot. And you might notice the design of them are pretty much the same as the ones used by the Red Gundam in GQuuuX. And that's because Char basically nicked all of the Elmeth's tech when he got the Gundam, causing it to never be built in that universe. When Lalah meets Amuro in battle, she regrets that they didn't meet sooner, and laments having to fight him to keep Char safe. Amuro is simply too dangerous in the Gundam, and not because of the Gundam itself, but Amuro specifically. As this late into the series, he's a fully developed new type pilot that the Gundam now can't really keep up with. For example, when their battle begins, Lalah starts by attacking from a distance, and Amuro, suddenly being attacked from all sides and encountering the brand new wireless bits for the first time, some of the most dangerous weapons a mobile suit can have, quickly adapted and was able to sense their psychic wires. Something not even Machu could do in the GQuuuX with more advanced technology and an actual Psychomu equipped, something the original Gundam did not have. Because of this, Lalah concludes that if she doesn't defeat him, then Char will die. When Char arrives to the battle, he's able, by working together with Lalah, to get the upper hand on one of the units supporting Amuro, only to be stopped at the last minute by Lalah as she realises that the pilot is actually his sister, Artesia. However, this moment of hesitation gives Amuro the chance to sever the arm of Char's Gelgoog and go in for the killing blow. But as he does, in order to save Char, Lalah moves her Elmeth into the path of Amuro's strike, causing it to directly pierce her cockpit, her helmet to crack, and the Elmeth to explode. All as she cries out as a new type, giving Amuro and Char a psychic shock. Her last words to Amuro are, "I can see time," before we see what looks like multicoloured confetti fly toward the screen. Multicoloured now like Kira. Neither of the two surviving pilots ever really fully recover, or are ever able to really forgive each other for this, leading in the end to Char becoming erratic and attempting to drop an asteroid onto the Earth, ostensibly as revenge against the people of Earth and to bring about a new type era, but in reality for far more complex psychological reasons and trauma and everything. GQuuuX then doesn't directly connect to the original universe, but you can clearly see the solid foundation that they built the premise on. The GQuuuX universe is created when instead Char manages to sacrifice himself to protect Lalah, and her sheer pain funneled through the Psychomu causes her not just to see time, but to change it, as she repeatedly changes things, trying to find a timeline where Char actually survives. It's done quite well, really. If GQuuuX had turned out shit, or if you think it is, it doesn't have to have anything to do with the original stories. It's just an alternate universe filled with other alternate universes. But also, on the other hand, if you want, the original timeline can connect to it. Char doesn't survive forever in the original stories either, disappearing alongside Amuro as Amuro stops the asteroid from falling onto Earth in a kind of Zeknova-like event called the Axis Shock. And with Lalah's final words, it's easy to imagine that as she dies in that original universe, she's connecting with and becoming aware of the other Lalah and the universes she's created. Or, if you want, even becoming aware that she changed time so that she does sacrifice herself instead of Char, and that it still doesn't work. I could imagine that being the first alternate timeline she created, even. Or the last, after she leaves the GQuuuX universe. Perhaps thinking herself unsuccessful there, getting forced to leave before she really knows if she was all the way successful. You could make the case that the original series allowing Char to survive another 14 years was the best she could do, even if it meant she had to completely die and give up any hope of being with Char to do so. The various red mobile suits shown in the final episode of GQuuuX then initially slightly confused me with how short they're on the screen. I thought maybe it was making it possible to also vaguely connect GQuuuX to nearly every Gundam series if you wanted, because the last one looks kind of like something out of Gundam 00, and the one before that looked possibly Seed-like. At least to me in the very short time they were on screen. But after looking at them again, I could see that they are all some form of Universal Century mobile suit. The bottom one is a goof, the first mobile suit Amuro faces in the original series that isn't a Zaku and gives him a lot of trouble alongside its excellent pilot, who we do actually see briefly in the last episode of GQuuuX, walking up the stairs with Artesia in the end when she's hopefully going to take over Zeon. The mobile suit above that is a Zuda, a mobile suit that competed with the Zaku to gain the contract as Zeon's main mobile suit. It's from Gundam Igloo, where we see the reason that it lost is that it would explode if the engines were pushed too hard, so I can't imagine Char, the Red Comet, survived too long in that timeline. Next is the Bigro, Zeon's first mobile armour, known for being very fast, but introduced to Char too late for him to really get the chance to use it in the original series. Then the Big Zam, which you'll be familiar with, as it is heavily featured in GQuuuX itself. The one that I thought looked vaguely Seed-like is actually the Galbaldi Alpha, which was originally going to be Char's second to last mobile suit in the original series, before the Zeong, until the original series was cut down from 50 episodes to 43 due to poor ratings. It's very hard to recognise because of that. Thanks to it not actually ever being animated at the time, it doesn't really have a very solid design. Every version you look at can be wildly different, really. Finally, the top one is actually the Sazabi, Char's iconic ultimate mobile suit from Char's Counterattack. Only here, designed by GQuuuX's mecha designer Ikuto Yamashita. This is the most impactful one, not just visually, but also because it implies another radically different timeline like GQuuuX's, where even mobile suit designs are different for some reason, and where Char somehow survived long enough for technology to reach the level of the Sazabi, but under completely different circumstances. There's lots of possibilities, but I imagine it as perhaps a world at endless war, where the periods of relative peace in between original series never existed, or even where the 1 year war itself never ended, and hopefully got a different name, but leading to faster mobile suit development under a continued war economy. It presumably couldn't be another universe where Zeon won, as in GQuuuX, the mobile suit technology seems noticeably behind the original show's universe. the original Gundam still being an absolute force to be reckoned with, as we surprisingly directly see in the end, where, thanks to new type shenanigans, the White Devil arrives in GQuuuX to be the final boss. Just to be clear though, the ability to enlarge itself is not something it's ever had before. That seems to be thanks to Shuji increasing its mass with matter from the other side of the Kira. I think, anyway. It's unclear exactly what the situation is with it or Shuji. That's like my only real complaint with the series, is that I feel like the vagueness of who Shuji actually is kind of muddies things in the end. Especially when the original Gundam arrives and the series starts making you wonder where Amuro actually also is in all of this. Why he's not involved with his original Gundam at all, seemingly. Especially when it's revealed that he or his soul is in some way involved with the GQuuuX itself, when it comments that it doesn't want to see Lalah die again. And Shalia explains that its unique Saikomu was made from an Oparts, which is just a kind of needlessly confusing acronym to throw in at the end that just means out of place artifact. It then also raises the question of what the G-Fred's deal is. Whether that required someone's soul too, and if so, whose? Maybe, just like another series with loose explanations and souls in its giant robots, we'll get an end of Evan GQuuuX film soon too. Who knows, we can only hope. With the reveal of GQuuuX's soul though, we become able to at least guess at what its name is a placeholder for. Like the show points out in episode 3, I think? It could be Endymion, like Shalia says here in the last episode, because it has the same amount of letters as the word Quax as well. Or that could just be the name of a system in it. Another option is the name Amuro Ray, as it also has the right number of letters. I prefer either of those to the name that programming and the G-Fred point to anyway, which is simply Waldo, which would be a bit of an out-of-nowhere disappointment after everything. With that though, I think that's finally just about everything. My next video should be another one explaining an anime, only this time I plan to explain an entire franchise that, a bit like Gundam, is known for being a bit difficult to start. Either way, I hope to, I was going to say hear from you in the future, but it's the other way around. I hope you'll hear from me again, sounds a bit conceited though, so I don't know. Anyway, bye!